I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Invest in East Network, and here today with me is Rob McEwen, Chairman and Chief Owner of McEwen Mining. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hi, Charlotte. Thank you.
Yes, and we're here right now at the Precious Metals Summit in Beaver Creek. It's a couple of days into the show. How have you found the sentiment? How's everybody feeling here?
I think it's very buoyant. The show's much bigger than it's been before, and there are a lot more senior and intermediate companies. Before it used to be very much junior, and there are a lot of generalist investors. So I'd say you can feel a positive tone and an optimistic view of the market going forward.
Yeah, definitely feeling that myself. I want to pick up on some of the conversations that we were having at the Sprott Show about a month and a half ago in Vancouver. You said at the time that you saw gold going higher, which it has. Are you still looking at a prediction of $1,700 gold going into the end of the year, or have you changed as the price has gone up?
I haven't changed the end of the year, but I do see it going forward. I've always had a $5,000 number, and I think it can go much higher than that. Just the amount of debt that's going negative, the negative coupon, the amount of money supply, the slowing of the economy all around the world is going to cause governments to just unleash huge amounts of monetary expansion. So I think it's going higher.
Everybody always wants to know the timeline for predictions like that. Is there anything you can say, or?
You should get exposure to gold right now.
Yeah.
But in terms of a timeline, the ultimate height, that's a good question. It'll be a couple of years out from here.
Right. Okay, and you mentioned exposure to gold. How would you suggest that people break down between physical gold, gold stocks, and things like that?
Well, that would depend on any one
Individual,
particular circumstances. For myself, I have a large holding of gold bullion, and then I have a very big position in my own company, McEwen Mining. But then I like the junior space more than the seniors. It's not as liquid, but you have more explosive moves on the upside. Also on the downside, but I think we're in a part of the market where you want to be looking for stories that have good drill results, management has a commitment financially to it, and it's been ignored in the market.
Going back to the gold price, around this event, I've heard some people say it's gone too high, too fast. What's your perspective on that? Do we need to see some consolidation, or is this an okay move up that we're seeing?
We had a bit of a consolidation last week, and the European Central Bank just lowered rates by a tiny amount, and gold popped $20. So, it's normal you can't just keep running in a straight line in any one direction, so there's usually consolidation periods. But if you look at the cyclical nature, the cyclicality of gold, the fall is often a strong period. September, October, maybe a bit of a pause in November and December, and then takes off again in January. So, no, corrections are normal, but...
So you just talked about the cyclical nature of the market, and at Sprott you mentioned we're in the second half of a bull market right now. I hear things all the time about what makes a bull market, whether we're in one right now. So for you, how do you define that? What are your thoughts on that?
On defining the bull market? I was just looking at the average duration of a bull market in gold equities. And it seems that we're about halfway along. And in the second half, you have a larger market participation going on. At the first part, they're the people that follow the space. The second half, it's the people that never gave it any thought. And they start pouring in, and the investment bankers are running to all sorts of companies and saying, I've got money, would you like to do an issue? You have your biggest moves in the second half.
So since we talked last, McEwen Mining has had a number of updates mostly related to exploration. Can you share some of the highlights?
Oh, we've had some great news coming out of Black Fox. It looks like the ore body it's fairly shallow relative to other greenstone Archean deposits in the Timmins area and Kirkland Lake area. So we've gone down to about 1,000 meters and picking up good grades. The best hole recently was 18 grams over 11 meters. And it's just showing that it may be extending. We've had We've had some assay results, triple digit, 245 grams over 3 meters, and all of those are giving us a lot of encouragement that there's opportunity on the west side of Black Fox. There are 3 satellite deposits that we think could be the source of future production from that mine area. Froome, Grey Fox, and Stock. Those names don't mean anything to anybody, but they would all benefit from being on our property, close to the existing infrastructure, and lower cost to develop.
Okay, so lots of positivity on the exploration side.
And we're about 62% through our drilling for the year, so you can anticipate a lot of exploration news between now and year end, as well as some resource updates. We have feasibility studies coming out from Mexico at the end of the month. We'll have another one, some numbers coming out on these satellite deposits as well.
Right, so good things going on with exploration. In one of your recent releases, you mentioned production's been a little bit on the disappointing side. So, and I know it's been a challenge this year in some ways. So, what are you continuing to doing to mitigate those issues?
Well, there were 2 areas where we were disappointed. One was Gold Bar, which we built this year, and it was supposed to come on at the end of the first quarter. It came on at the end of May, and there were some weather issues that caused us to not get as much material on the heap leach pads as we'd hoped, and that we didn't lose the gold, it just pushed it into next year. So we reduced our guidance on production there. So we'll see 70,000 ounces coming out of Gold Bar next year. At Black Fox, there's been a series of operational issues that, well, I look back and I laugh, but they weren't funny at the time. Yeah. They've cut our projections for production. We think we'll probably scale back Black Fox next year further and just concentrate on the satellite deposits. We expect one of the satellites to go into production at the end of next year and do a bulk sample on another one that's just a couple of kilometers away. And then the other 60% of our production is performing as planned.
So I always enjoy how candid you are in your news releases, like the one that came out recently. You said, I'm happy about this, not happy about this. Is that a conscious decision you made to talk to shareholders like that? How did that come about?
I feel it's important to keep our shareholders informed of the good news and the bad news. And that's why that type of report. I don't want to create a surprise. And sometimes it might be a little more extreme, and people would say, well, we don't want to talk about that right now. Let's wait. And I think it's better to get a heads up, and it might scare the market a little bit, but it's letting them know where we are, and they should be in a better position to make a decision.
Yeah, and I think it helps make it a little bit more understandable for people who are reading along at home. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's everything from me, unless you have any final words that you would want to leave investors with as we head in, I guess, to the last months of the year.
Well, it's important to remember that markets don't move in straight lines, but I think now is an opportune time to be looking at adding to your investments in gold, and but also looking at maybe those who haven't invested to think about it. There's some major issues in the world markets right now that suggest you should have some exposure there. And if you want to listen to Ray Dalio, he's a pretty successful investor, and he's recommending 5 to 10% of your portfolio in gold.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll leave it there. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Rob McEwen with McEwen Mining.